Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here on the Business Breakthrough New York podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Tom Dolan, and he is the CEO of Babylon IDA. And we're going to get into what the IDA is specifically. But before we do that, I just want to give you a brief intro into some of the work that they're doing so you can get a feel of the services they provide. So the Babylon IDA works closely with Lakeville Kitchen and Bath, a small business in the area, to finalize an assistance program that will enable them to make $5.6 million investment that creates 4 new jobs at an average salary of $55,000 a year. They also have another success story that we're going to dive into a little bit later about this business called The Well, 1L. So without further ado, I want to introduce and bring you guys our very special guest, Tom Dolan.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks. It's a pleasure being here, and I love your setup. I really do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is great. So the Babylon IDA, the town we are the focus on economic development, and we work on economic development, community development, workforce development. These are all the things that are important to the area. The mission is to spur economic growth, obviously, and enhance the community well-being, cultivate a skilled workforce, and facilitate the creation of housing and transit-oriented development, specifically, which we'll talk about a little bit.
100%.
But my role, so I've been with the IDA. I am in my, 11th year. My first year in 2014, I served on the board of directors. And then there was an opportunity to move to the other side. So I started in 2015 as a special projects manager for them, worked to a vice president of business development, and then in 2019 became the CEO right before the pandemic, which was a little challenging.
Yeah, what a time.
Yeah.
I guess that you're going to experience kind of the worst of it at the very beginning. So you cut your teeth on that on the COVID days.
Well, I tell you, it was obviously an experience for all of us. You know, I don't think we knew what was around the corner, but to be sitting here now and looking back, it's amazing what we went through, and more importantly, what some of the businesses had to endure to get back on their feet and get back going again.
Absolutely. Yeah, across the nation and probably across the world, people were seeing what was happening specifically like in New York. A lot gets highlighted and the impacts of COVID on business and everything. So to know that, behind the scenes, what people weren't seeing are agencies such as yours. And IDA, for everyone, is the Industrial Development Agency.
That's correct.
I always want to say association,
right.
But I saw that it was marked as, like, you guys refer to it as the agency. Correct. So I immediately thought that you're actually a subdivision of the CIA. Don't
speak that way. No, we're good. We're good. You're safe with me. I promise you.
Good.
I promise you. Prior to that, so I had a career prior to that where I was for more than 20 years. I was in the insurance financial services industry also. So working with a lot of business owners and small business owners. And so I had a lot of insight as far as some of their needs and some of the things that they're looking to do. And it's been a great transition, working here with the IDA.
That's a huge asset coming into this role because of what the agency is set up to do. And so to have somebody that actually has like hands on the businesses, boots on the ground, so to speak, down in the trenches, actually working with them to be in that position, that's always what you hope for.
Sure.
That you don't just have kind of like a bureaucrat or somebody that's just a manager that gets up to the top, but somebody that actually understands the fundamentals of the economics and the finances for the businesses.
Absolutely. And so important to, my prior business, again, it was about building relationships. And it's the same way today as far as building these relationships with the business owners. And again, it gives you a real good understanding of what's important to them.
Right. 100%. And so I like the high level overview that you were able to give on the IDA. I don't know how much that hits home for people because they hear the big words like, it sounds nice.
Yeah.
And so I want to get into, because you guys do incredible work with the businesses. And so what can a business expect working with you guys, or how do you serve small businesses in the town of Babylon?
Sure. Well, I think it's important, too, to take maybe a little bit of a step back, right? So industrial development agencies in New York State, the law was written, the law in 1969. The town of Babylon got there. The agency was incorporated in 1973 here. But when we look back, it's 1969 and 1973. You're probably you weren't even here yet. We were facing the same issues as we're facing today, which is trying to keep business here. The challenge in New York has always been, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? But at the same time, it's very, very hard to do business in New York because of the expense and what it costs to do business in New York. So the Industrial Development Agency, what we do is we help businesses in the town. Either we help attract business to the town of Babylon, or we help businesses expand here in the town of Babylon. And we do that by offering incentives. And we offer 3 financial incentives. We offer a real tax abatement on their property taxes. We offer a mortgage recording tax. There's a mortgage recording tax that they have to pay, and also a sales tax. So if they need to do construction to the building or repair the building and get it to where they need it to be, the build out, so to speak, they get a sales tax. We also have partners in our economic development partners in PSE&G, National Grid, which is also a big expense here in New York State as far as energy. So they do energy audits and things like that. So we try to get the businesses, again, giving them an incentive, giving them a reason to invest and to grow their businesses here. And that's really what we do. The misconception, a little bit of the misconception, is that we write checks to businesses. We do not do that. We offer those incentives. The other misconception is that we pick and choose who. You ask, what kind of businesses. So we can't help retail businesses. That's just the way the law is written. But we can help, small businesses or be a resource to that small business to help them get to where they need to be, so then they become a qualified IDA.
Oh, that's great. So you actually work with businesses in the pre-qualification phase to help them get to the point where they actually meet those prereqs in order to. That's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to be a resource, right? We want businesses to stay here. We want businesses to expand here and be successful. Absolutely.
Can you, just for the uninitiated, and I'll just put my hand up in that same boat, I want a little bit deeper dive on the abatements. Like, what does that actually mean? How does that show up in real life? Maybe through an example of a business that you've worked with.
Well, there's 2. We'll get into the housing is a little different thing, and I could talk about how we handled that. But say you were a business owner and you were looking to come to the town of Babylon. You find a business, the business is the building, I should say, and you want to purchase the building, and it's a 20,000 square foot building, and you let us know that, if I'm able to get this business going here, I'm going to bring not only the 30 people I have working with me now, but I'm going to be able to, by expanding here in the town of Babylon, we're going to add another 10, maybe 15 jobs in the community also. So what we do is the real tax abatement. So that first one is we would offer them what we call a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. So the mechanism is we would actually take a leasehold interest in the building. So the gentleman or the woman would buy the business, or the building, I should say. We would take a leasehold interest in the building. By doing that, we take it off the tax rolls. Because of being a government agency, we're able to take them off the tax rolls. And then we would enter into a separate agreement with that business owner. And the first one, again, is the real tax property abatement. And we have what we call, gets a little, but it's something called a UTEP. And this was developed by our board of directors. And a UTEP is our Uniform Tax Exemption Policy. So we have a policy. So if you were coming in with those 20 employees, and you were going to add 10, 15, we would offer you a 12-year real property tax abatement. So we would cut the taxes in year 1, 60%, and then every year there would be an increase of 5% until year 13, you'd be back out at 100% paying full taxes again.
Wow.
But the idea is we want to give you that incentive to make that investment in the building, in the community, and that tends to help businesses. And that's why we're aggressive up front, is to really help that business owner. And it helps them when they go out for financing as well, because now the lender knows that the taxes are going to be pretty secure, and it makes for a better project for that business owner.
Absolutely. And so that's the tax abatement. And was there another area that you had mentioned?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So now the gentleman comes in, or the woman, I shouldn't say gentleman, I'm thinking of a certain business owner, but the business owner comes in and they notice that they have to do work to the facility, or they need certain things to outfit it to make it work for them. So we'll give them a 2-year sales tax abatement on anything that they do. So if they have to do new sheetrocking and upgrades to the building, racking, if they need a high-low or they need certain things to help their business operate, we'll give them a 2-year sales tax abatement on that. It has to be things that stay on the real property. Can't be pens and pencils or trucks that leave the property. It's things that help and increase the value of the property itself. And then the last one, there's a mortgage recording tax. So if in Suffolk County, there's what they call a mortgage recording tax. And if they're going to do financing through a mortgage, the county charges them I think it's 1.25%, but we're able to abate up to like 0.75 of that.
Wow.
Yeah. Which again, it just helps. And it's money in the business owner's pocket that they then can use them to help create jobs and do what they need to do to grow their business.
How much was the abatement for the renovation or the restoration of the building? You said there was a 2-year sales tax.
Right.
Is that at what percentage rate is the sales tax being?
With New York State sales tax, which I think is 8.5% right now, maybe 8 3/4.
Yeah, right.
It's funny when the camera goes on. I don't know, but the idea is that, and the reason we give them 2 years is sometimes there's things that they need as far as if there's construction, it has to go on with the building. It may take some time, and that's why we do 2 years. We also, as a town industrial development agency, business owners, let's say they want to come in the same scenario. They want to look at this business, but they want to maybe expand the footprint of the building, or they want to do certain renovations to the building. By being a town IDA, we're able to set them up with our planning department for the town, which before they start spending any money on an architect or anything like that, we want to make sure that, hey, this is something that can be done. The town would accept this, and now it's go time, so to speak.
And that's great because then they're almost being facilitated through approvals and checks on what they want to do in the first place because they're connected with the IDA.
Correct.
That's
and
amazing.
Sometimes it's again, we want to be a resource. We're here to help, right?
So is that 2-year tax abatement? Is that 100% of the sales tax for 2 years?
It's 100% of the sales tax for 2 years.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear in my understanding. Perfect. Now I'm curious about the IDA in general from a broader perspective. Is IDA specific to New York, or is there like a national initiative to this? Or
this was a New York State law, and there's over 100 IDAs in New York State. There's 8 of us on Long Island. And one of the things we do work together because again, it's about the region, right? So Babylon is not the answer all the time. The supervisor might not like hearing that, but it doesn't always work for every business depending on what we have here, but we communicate with the other agencies on Long Island. There's a Suffolk County has an IDA, Brookhaven has an IDA, Islip, Riverhead, Glen Cove, Nassau IDA, and again, we communicate all the time. Matter of fact, next week I'll be going up to Cooperstown. All of us will be up in Cooperstown, kind of working and talking about best practices.
I was just informed about that by one of the speakers at the event that was going on today.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was like, that's interesting. I was invited to go. I'm like, I can't, but it's good. It sounds like an amazing event.
Yes.
That's great. So are you aware, are there other programs that you're aware of by chance that are similar to the IDA that have a broader reach?
Sure. There are there's a federal agency also that works, a lot of grants, a lot of support, and that you could look that up. But again, and that's what we would do. If a business owner came in and we knew of a program, New York State has their own also, Empire State Development. And we work with them and we communicate with them because sometimes, again, we don't have what the business owner needs maybe at that time, but we know of some grants or different programs that may be available to help them in the direction that they want to go. So it is. And then to answer as far as some of the other states, they're not all called industrial development agencies, but they're economic development agencies. And we know all about them because a lot of the business owners here are, they come back to us and say, look what Pennsylvania will do for us. So look what North Carolina will do for us.
They're pitting mom against dad. I get it.
Yeah,
okay.
They're going to give us a parade and they're going to name a block after us, But we do what we can do to keep them here and to help them expand here.
Absolutely.
That's the goal. Yeah.
That's great. And it's good to know. So if you're out there and you're thinking about this and you're not in New York, so we we have both a national and an international audience. But for those in the States, you can just look up your state and look up, economic development program and your state and see what comes up and start
and there's all different programs and different levels. Again, we don't deal a lot with Main Street and some of the small businesses. But again, we have an interest in that as we invest in those communities. And there are, downtown revitalization programs and grants and different things that they can get things through. Again, PSC&G, National Grid, they're very active in that community also.
Yeah, I just heard some amazing things that PSC&G are doing for small businesses when it comes to aggressively giving out grants.
Yes.
And to the point where the lady who was hosting the event today, I was like, I got to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like there's so much value that they're itching to put out there into the community.
Sure.
And they're having a problem with marketing. I'm like, you're giving away money. I can help you with the marketing problem.
Right.
Let's come on the show.
No, but that's exactly that. And that's part of the concern sometimes too, is it's so hard to get that information out there. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of information. There's plenty of money. And, one thing I'll say about New York State, not to get political, but just the fact that they've been very aggressive in economic development over the last X amount of years. I know the governor right now is a big push for housing and the need for housing out here.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to back it up with agencies that are actually on the ground making it happen.
Exactly.
And so that's one of the reasons IDA exists. It's a beautiful thing. On that note, I think that's a perfect segue into, let's dive a little bit into some of the work that you guys have done. I know I touched on the Lakeville kitchen and bath, but if you wanted to go a little bit more into that, to that story with some details.
Well, that was a piggyback to a story. So they were located in Lindenhurst, right where the well is. And they owned all that property, and it was an old industrial, but it was getting a little run down and things like that. And there was an opportunity to them to sell the property. But what we wanted to do is, in our talks with them, was to keep them right here in the town of Babylon. So by being able to offer them an incentive and there were things available, we were able to keep that business right here in the town, which Incredible. Is great. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so then that leads right into the well.
That leads right into the well, which I am a Lindenhurst resident too. But, the first thing I would say is that the village administration in Lindenhurst, Mayor Mike Lavarada and the trustees and their administration gets a lot of the credit for, spearheading that project. And, we came in as we work with the finances to make it work and help the developer find the right mix to create something for the pilot that we spoke about before. Right. So we actually use a company called Grow America, which is a third party, which they take all the intake from the developer as far as the costs and what it's going to take to build it and the property taxes and future, what the future value would be, the assessed value. And they help us work together so that we structure the pilot correctly. So that was a big thing.
So what the well is it's a huge development.
Sure is.
What is it specifically? It's housing.
Yep.
Correct.
It's a multi-res housing.
Right. So they have everything from studios to 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms, right? And there's a mix of, I don't know the exact mix right now offhand, but a lot of 1-bedroom studios, 2 bedrooms, not many 3.
Okay.
But that's probably the mix there. I think there's like a couple of 100 units there. But really what that did, so, and that's part of where our podcast came out of also, which I'll just put a cheap plug in for that.
Yeah, shameless plug. Let's go. I'm about it.
But it was the misconception and people, and they're entitled to question things or want to make things. But again, it was the leadership of Mike Lavarada and the village of Lindenhurst. And then we had to come in and talk about what we do. And people, why are you giving away all of this money? Or why are you doing what you're doing? But really, again, it's about giving the incentive to the developer who takes this risk and create something that can make it work because you want it to work. And we've heard we had to do a public hearing for that. And, it's going to become Section 8 housing. There was a lot of misconceptions as far as what that was. And that's why, again, getting back to why we wanted to create the podcast, to get the right message out there. But what's funny is now living there And now that the project is done, and it's a true transit-oriented development, it's right across from the Lindenhurst Railroad Station. It's a block off their main downtown. But I want to say that over 20 new businesses were created because of that. One of the businesses that we were able to help with also, and again, R.J. Renner, one of the trustees in Lindenhurst, contacted me. There was a building that sat empty for over a decade, the old CVS on Wellwood Avenue in Lindenhurst, and Sand City Brewing is there now. And we were able to help them because they are a manufacturer of brew, so it fit under our guidelines, and we were able to take an empty building and move in. And one of the things that they shared with us is if the well wasn't there, they would have never come.
100%.
Okay? So
you need the population, you need the people.
That's right. So that was about over $100 million investment into the community, and the multiplier effect that had happened as far as the restaurants, the downtown. You go to their downtown now, and it's hopping. And again, they deserve all the credit there, and we were glad to use our tools to be able to assist.
Amazing. To have a housing, development take place in that proximity to the public transportation, to the downtown, and to be able to bring in, to attract these businesses, not through promises, but through delivery.
Right.
They're showing up, and it's like, okay, I can expand, or I can start, and I can go there. There's actually, and especially because it wasn't there before, so why would businesses have already been there? So it's an opportunity for those businesses to come in kind of on the ground floor.
Yeah. And, the other part of that, too, I just want to, and I know we're probably getting off of, but we had done, the Industrial Development Agency, we went out and we did a survey with a lot of the businesses in the town of Babylon, and I'm just even some of the larger businesses. And one of their concerns through the survey was housing, keeping the workforce here. How do you make something affordable? Well, markets are driven by supply and demand, right? So we need to up that supply, and also attracting. How does a business attract people to, they get sticker shock, when they come from different parts of the country to Long Island. They're like, what? But so the housing was a major part. So the workforce housing is huge. It does attract young, entrepreneurs and young workforce that we need, skilled workforce. And we really need to continue that path and continue forward with that.
100%.
Not just here in the town, but in the region.
Right, exactly. It seems like a great way. It's like the opposite of Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
It's like they will come and you will build it.
Right.
So that's the IDA's job.
Right.
That's beautiful. I love it. So you had talked about how you, by law, the way that it's written for IDA's existence, you can't do work with retail businesses.
That's correct.
So I'm curious about if you would be willing to go into further details of what are straight no-goes, like we just can't do business with these particular industries, and which ones can you do business with, and of those, what are the markers that would make them like, yes, we can help you?
Again, retail, we had the opportunity to help a lot of the small businesses during the pandemic, which was wonderful. Again, and because when you're doing projects like the well, we've done a lot of work in Copeg, the hamlet of Copeg, which is doing a great job. And again, that goes to our supervisor, Rich Schaefer, Deputy Supervisor Martinez, and the town board. And again, we're seeing success, but a lot of those downtowns that we've invested in, we were able to help those businesses on Main Street, just guiding them through. There was a lot going on during the pandemic, but also grants and monies that the state, a law that gave us the opportunity to help those small businesses through some grant programs and things like that. And I know there's discussion also that maybe someday we'll be able to help the retail businesses and expand, help them grow. But right now we can't. So a lot of that is the mom and pop shops that we really can't do a lot for and stuff. We do have some businesses that have a component that's retail. So if they do a small, but a majority of their business is either business to business or, a different, where they're not retail, they're working directly with other businesses and they manufacture something or they offer a service, we would entertain that and have a conversation with them and see if we can help them again and or direct them to someone who can. But mostly what we deal with is a lot of the large manufacturers here. Some small, we have shops that are, 10,000 square feet, small manufacturing. They employ about 15 people. But again, they make that investment and we try to help them sustain or come here. And it helps the town also, because if we can keep these industrial buildings full and looking good and people making investments in them, it helps. There is a multiplier effect on that does help the residents, because our bond rating goes up, the town's bond rating and things. So there is a multiplier there. But many of the businesses are some of the larger ones. The Dario is a large IDA client, Pasilico, Pressapart, PC Richard and Son. So we do have larger businesses that we've helped early on, and now, they're here. They're employing a lot of people, and that's a big matrix for us as far as to make sure that the employment and local employment is also very important. But to answer your question, too, a lot of times we sit and we share with them, and it's always a meeting, right? It never hurts to have a meeting with a small business owner or a business that may be contemplating what they want to do. And by having a conversation with us, we can kind of share with them, this is either a good thing or bad, but at the end of the day, it's a business decision on their part. Right. So once we lay it all out as far as what we can do for them, and, then it's about their, they go back with their team and decide whether or not this is something that they would like to move forward with.
That makes sense. And you can even help them through the process if they're looking to, even if they're going from kind of a home-based, but they're doing business to business, and they're looking to go into their first have their first brick and mortar. If they go into you, they can actually get, because like you said, you're connected with all of the other IDAs. Mm-hmm. And so if they go into you and you're like, it might be a better fit if you go over here and be able to make that connection. So that's
absolutely
great. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So if someone is interested and they want to have that meeting, how do they go about doing that?
Well, they contact us.
There we go.
We get a lot of the business that comes to us is through commercial brokers.
Okay.
Because they know who's on the move. Usually somebody reaches out to them because they're interested in a certain building or a certain location. So a lot of our business does come through them. Well, they'll make the introduction, or an attorney or someone else who's very familiar with IDAs. We do have business owners that do contact. They do their own research, and they have contacted us. So what we do is we have what we call an intake meeting, where we would set up a meeting with them, and they would come in, and we would kind of find out a lot more about their business, what they're looking to do, what stage they're at in their business. At the end of the day, if they can get the financing they need, if somebody's in business 1 or 2 years, but they're having success and they're looking to grow and they need this building, and we'll help them get there, too. Okay. So we're not going to shy away from somebody because they're only in business a year or two. But obviously, if a business is more established and growing and has more of a track record, obviously that helps them a little bit more.
Right. So it's similar to what they're going through with the bank, if they're going to the bank and they're proving themselves through their track record in order to get that lending. You're kind of looking at similar things, like we want to make sure that this is established. We're on a pace of growth.
We'll even ask them sometimes. We want to see their bank commitment. So we want to see the commitment on the other end, because there is a lot of due diligence that we do, and our process is, so we would sit with the business, and once we get past that initial meeting and we think, hey, this is something that may work, we send out to them a letter of intent, and it kind of outlines what the cost-benefit analysis would be, what the expenses would be to them to be able to do this transaction. And then if they say, you know what, we like it, we think this makes a lot of sense, the next step is an application. So we send them out an application, they fill out the application, and then what we do is we take that to our board, and we do what we call a preliminary resolution, where this is our opportunity now for the board to kind of look at this application and check all the boxes and make sure everything's in order. Then we go to the public. We do a public hearing. So there's a public hearing, which we have to notify. That's also something that people can go to our website, and you can watch a public hearing, or you can attend if you want to make comments. We got to put out the public notice. And then it goes back to the board for a final resolution. Then once the final resolution is done by the board, the attorneys on our side and the attorneys for the prospective client will come up with, and they go to a closing, and then that's how they become an IDA client. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the monthly. It seems like every month you guys have it scheduled where there's a board meeting.
Yes.
And that's happening at the Old Town Hall in Babylon.
Most times.
Most times.
And
not
the
every
reason I'll
time.
say not all the times because we have some shared space there.
Okay.
So during the holidays, there's a huge model train thing. It's pretty cool for the community to come in and see. And we also share with an arts, BACA, which is Babylon Arts Council, which is very good. So we would make notice of that if we move our meeting, but we normally do it at Old Town Hall, or we've used Town Hall on Sunrise Highway in Lindenhurst.
Okay. And then you do a live stream on YouTube.
That's
as well,
correct.
so that people can see it.
That's correct.
And do those consist of just this component of it, of proposing to the town
for the most
business?
part?
Okay.
For the most part, that's our business. That's what we do. The board. We may get a presentation if someone comes in and they're proposing a certain project, again, like a housing or a project like that, and the board wants to hear from them and question them. You may see someone come to a board meeting and make a presentation to the board. That is also part of it.
And this is really interesting. People might just see this and hear this and think it's not particularly relevant to me what's going on in there, but I go back to the story of the well. Mm-hmm. Right? If I'm trying to lean forward with my business and I hear about this through these meetings, I have an edge to understand that there's a new huge, population base that's going to be in this area.
Sure.
And I can start scoping out different places if I want to expand my business, or maybe this is the opportunity to go and have that brick and mortar for the first time. I've been doing a bunch of sales online and all of these things, and I'm ready to make the shift. But I was kind of waiting for the right time, and these are chances, these are clues of what's to come.
Absolutely.
And so you can take advantage and get ahead of the curve, so to speak.
Absolutely. And that, again, but that's part of what we try to do the podcast for too. So talk
that's
about
exactly what I wanted to get into next. Perfect.
You're good. You are good. No, that's very good. But and that's what the podcast was. And to get back, so just to share with you, when we did the well, we did a public hearing, and there was a lot of misconception, a lot of, how, it's the old telephone game, you say something here, and by the time it gets over here, it's like,
pink elephants. What are we
doing?
Yeah.
So people here, one of the misconceptions is like I said, we're giving the money away. Mm-hmm. So when the property in Lindenhurst, when that was developed, there was taxes that were already being paid on that property. One of the things we do with our housing projects is we let the community know they'll never see a dollar less of what they're seeing currently. So when they see in the paper, they're going to be paying 0%. Developer's not paying anything. No, he's paying what was there. After the investment, though, there's a new assessed value on the property. So the tax bill changes for that property. So they pay that. That's the base that they would pay. And then we work in that pilot schedule out over time. So that's based on, a new investment, and that's where the new dollars come from. An example of that may be when Amazon was going to go to Long Island City. There was the big back and forth, and everyone said they're giving away millions and millions of dollars, $50 million. They're going to do that. There was no $50 million without the investment. So the property sits today with nothing on it, and that's kind of what we're saying. So sometimes people think that the money's already there, that we're giving it away, and why can't it be used for something else? It's like, no, the money's really not there until the investment is made and that person takes the risk, the developer takes the risk to do that. That's
a really good point of clarification. It's always a little bit more complicated than people realize, or nuanced at least.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, I understand that. When you're hearing things, and again, some of that's because of headlines written, or so that's the perception. And it goes deeper. And we've sat with civics, during some of the projects that we've done. We try to meet with the school boards because they're impacted by these things. We try to meet with the civics and the groups that have concerns around this, and kind of explain what is. But again, at the end of the day, we are economic development, and development is, we're planting seeds. It's not instant. Sometimes you see things happening right away, but we're looking to create things to be sustainable long term.
Yeah, we're addicted to a fast-paced, immediate turn on results and things like that. And so if they see a program or an agency that's out there and that's in this kind of industry, performing these kinds of activities, like, we need to see that immediate turnaround, or what's your purpose? And it's like, no, if you want sustainable growth, if you want to actually change things fundamentally on the ground, you have to have a long time horizon.
Absolutely.
You know, it's these investments take time to grow, and they need nurturing along the way, and so it's so important that you guys are out there.
Yeah. Well, again, Lindenhurst, not to keep coming back to Lindenhurst because there's been a lot of other success stories. Wyandanch is a success story. The Gray Barn in North Amityville, success story. That's a whole other story that we had recently on our podcast. The developer who did that, and he walked us through the steps and what it took to take that property and turn it around. But Lindenhurst is something that you did see immediate kind of results. So all of a sudden, businesses are popping up everywhere. You go through the downtown now. And I mean, I think one of their original economic development committee meetings, the percentage of businesses, empty storefronts and things like that were there. And again, one investment like that turned the whole, the transformation of that, and it gave them momentum. And again, credit to Mike Lavarada and his administration for, some of the grants that they were able to secure for the downtown and what they did there. But it shows you what happens when there's investment made and there's a vision and you're working towards something.
Yeah, having that vision is so important, even when you take it down just to the individual business level. But even as you get bigger and bigger, you have to have something that people can buy into.
Mm-hmm.
And with this type of change, you need buy-in from a lot of really kind of big head honcho figures in these different areas of civics and the business community and things like that. And so without a clear vision of what is the purpose behind this, it's not just this random act of trying to get these couple businesses in there. It's changing the
look. One of the things I said too, again, going back to my previous life and being in financial services, is you can do nothing. So when you sat with a client, you could do nothing, but what's still going to be the result of nothing? And I think it's so important. The same with here is that, you pick up the paper. I think it was just in today's local paper about people leaving the island. So we need to be proactive. We need to be, focused on economic development. Housing has to be part of that conversation. Workforce development has to be part of that conversation. And that's another thing. Businesses right now can't find workers. We have a very low unemployment rate. People are worried, but not for nothing. The economy is doing pretty good, with a low unemployment rate. I know inflation, but that happens. Again, that's supply and demand, and that's people making money and spending money, and it causes things to go up.
Well, and that's the thing is as businesses come in and they offer more positions and better paying jobs, then that's the way that you can pay for the items in the grocery store that are markedly more expensive and haven't changed in a while.
Absolutely.
It's frustrating, but when you get that opportunity, I mean, that's welcome. That helps to improve everything around you.
Agreed.
So when it comes to the podcast specifically, what was the inspiration? You kind of went into the inspiration a little bit. What's the inspiration for it? What's the name of it? What can people expect when they go there to listen?
Sure. Well, they won't see this. I can tell you that we don't videotape, but this is awesome. And again, thank you. What can they expect? The inspiration. So when I go back to the inspiration, part of it again was the misconception and some of the things that were said to me during a public hearing that I just sit there and it's like, wow, this is not true. And we need to set the record straight, and we need to make sure that people understand what we do, why we do what we do, and the guidelines in which we work under, right? So that was first. The other part of it was the Babylon Business Boot Camp, which we did with the Small Business Development Center right here, Erica Chase, which did a great job. And
she's the reason this podcast exists.
She's
an incredible woman.
But it was the work we did with her during the pandemic to help small businesses. And realizing how important it was to be out there a little bit more. So it just gave us another platform. It gave us an opportunity to kind of share with not just the Babylon residents what was happening locally, but also take a look sometimes, what's happening in the world. I mean, I think the economy is, we talk about things that are going on and how that, that macro, how that, when you come back to the micro, how is that impacting us here?
And I feel like that's something that's missed out there right now is there are a lot of people that, I mean, the big draw for podcasts and for media in general, when it comes to this niche of conversations is always like what's happening on the national level, what's happening federally, and, what's going to be the result of this, that, and the other. But the results that they're talking about, the impact that they're talking about is typically within the national and federal space.
Right.
And so having somebody to translate that economically for businesses and for this community down to how it's actually going to impact us on the local level, that's a piece that tends to be missing. And so that seems like a really good value proposition for people to consider if they're looking for a podcast that's going to do that translation for them.
And the name of it is Economically Speaking. So there you go.
There it is.
And
Where
it's
can people find it?
They can find it on the Spotify, Apple, all the platforms that for the podcast.
Sarah, he's in more places than we are. Apple and I are we're I wouldn't say we're in a fight because you have to have people responding to each other to be in a fight. So I feel like I'm getting a cold shoulder. I'm getting a cold apple right now.
Apple knows that you use a Galaxy, and that's why they didn't want to help you.
Oh, she's throwing it down. My own insider threat over there, Apple. Yeah, no, we're working through.
I can't take all the credit for that. If you watch me behind a computer, you would know I did not set all that stuff up. I just get behind a microphone and try to do a good job, and you've done a terrific job. I appreciate this opportunity and how you handle yourself here. It's great.
I appreciate it. It was so great to have you on. Is there anything else that you want people to know about, or?
Well, I think it's important that if you're a small business owner and you think some of the things that we kind of talked about today, there's any kind of interest. Again, you don't have to necessarily be an IDA client, but if there's any way we can help you or direct you. But the town of Babylon is, you can go to our website, which is babylonida.org. If you need to reach out to us, you can email us at info@babylonida.org. That's info, INFO. And our number is 631-587-3679. That's our office number. So if you want to reach out to us, and again, this relationship, or look to continue in this relationship. And again, we're here to help businesses grow and people to stay here and continue onward and upward, right? That's kind of the... Yeah.
I'm so grateful that people like you are in the positions that they're in these types of organizations that can really help guide it in the right direction and make meaningful impact for people at every level of society, from the workers to the business owners to housing and just everything. It's so impactful. We're so lucky to have you out there. So keep up the great work. Keep on fighting for the mission, and
we'll do.
And hopefully, as things continue to progress, we can bring you back on and we can talk about future projects that are happening.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right.